Hello and welcome to Darcy's Adventure Building Lazy GM Adventure Jam. I am Darcy, the Community Relations Coordinator for Monte Games, and I have a special guest today. Want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is John Harness. I have no official affiliation with Monte Games other than I enjoy the games. The company's really sweet. I've run Numenera and the Strange games at Gen Con for several years. And I recently appeared on the Invisible Suns One Shot Network stream, A Woman with Hollow Eyes.
Excellent. I feel like I'm not getting chat yet, so I'm going to refresh this page because it's very important for us to have chat working today because we need your input to make this a super successful, fun, good time. Aha, hello. That's what you want. Hello, Spinglemaker371. Okay, we have chat now. Yay. So, why don't we talk about what we're doing here today? So, a little over a month ago now, I guess it was more than that, it was on my birthday, February 27th, I ran the first session of a campaign I was calling Echoes Linger. So this is going to be a short Numenera campaign to introduce new people to the game and to just, have a nice, pretty Numenera presence on our Twitch channel. So, and it's really fun because Monte Cook is going to be one of the players, and we occasionally get Shanna and Bruce and Sean to be players, but we almost never get to see Monte as a player, and so that's been really fun. But some time has passed. I was sick last time when I tried to run this, and so I want to come up with a really fun adventure for this campaign. And I've really been enjoying collaborative world building and the interactivity with chat that I'm getting from A Woman with Hollow Eyes, which John was just a guest on there too, our Invisible Sun stream with the One Shot Network. And so I thought I could be a lazy GM and outsource some of my ideas and do a little world building of the city that these players will find themselves in. So where we are on the map, let me orient us all. I'm not sure if any of you can see it very well, but we are in Navarine. This is in the Steadfast, so the relatively settled area of the Ninth World. And this is where... let's see, this is where the Amber Monolith is, which is one of those very iconic set pieces of the Ninth World. And yeah, so it's got like lots of rolling hills and strange monoliths hanging out. And the Amber Monolith is very iconic for the Amber Papacy, right? The Aeon Priests. It's where the first Aeon Priest sort of found mysterious artifacts of the past that got him to actually start the whole Order of Truth and all that. So it's kind of a cool historical place to set this, I think.
Yeah, and that's always a cool place to set an adventure in a kind of iconic spot. It's also fun to set it in a totally unexplored place where anything goes. But, I would love to play an Amber Monolith sort of story and figure out what's going on in all of that sort of lore-heavy, lore-rich environment.
Yeah, and... I think Numenera, the way the book lays out lore for you, is that there's a lot of it. There's a ton of fluff in these books, even just the core book, but it leaves a lot of blanks. And so I think what I'm really excited to do is explore some of those blanks, and hopefully not come away with total answers. And any answers we come up with in our campaign is going to be that's just my headcanon, right? But yeah, I think it's fun to like, I'm excited by those question marks, and this campaign is letting me start to fill them in and play around there. So the current situation is that the players have been cast out of the city of Echoes, of Shallamas. Oh no. So they had been framed for some crime, for the murder of a very beloved local actor. And they all had this connection to this like theater company, basically, through one way or another. And so there was an echo, which is like a visual like hologram that replays events from the past. This is the echoes of the city of Echoes. And so the hologram showed up showing them murdering this guy. And basically the echoes are believed to be so accurate that if you see an echo, it is equivalent to, first eyewitnesses of the event. And so they were immediately, imprisoned, and the local Aeon priesthood, which has a pretty big influence there, sort of said, oh, rather than imprisoning them or whatever we usually do, why don't we, part of their right is to send them off on a mission, right? And so they get these bracelets put on them that are keeping them out of the city and that are possibly doing other nefarious things to them. And their mission is to go find out truths of Kalaval, that first Aeon priest, and so go visit some of the sites where he had performed miracles, and come back. If you come back with sufficiently good information, we'll free you and your sins will be forgiven, etc. And so the group is currently very, very sad about having to leave their beloved city and go live in this very, very dangerous place, right? Yeah. And so they could have followed a caravan that was going straight to the Amber Monolith, or they could go to the nearer city of Bodrov, where he was also supposedly had some miracles performed. And so they decided they wanted to go to a city where they had some contacts, and there is a Ninth World cartographers nano conclave that lives there that might be able to tell them more about the Numenera artifact that is put around their wrists and what the deal is, and see if they could get them out. So they've just arrived in Bodrov, and what I want from chat, if you guys are up for going there with me, is to take the little bit of text that we have on that city and give it more detail and bring it to life, and maybe work in some adventure hooks and things. So I'm going to quickly tell you a little bit about Bodrov based on the book. And I should say what we were doing before we got here. Do you want to tell the audience?
I will tell them. So we were doing a different bit of GM prep. We have all decided here, just in our neighborhood, to play a game of Stars Without Number, which is this game from Sine Nomine Publishing. And we only bring that up not because it has anything to do with Numenera per se, but because it's that book has a lot of GM tools in it, like lots of random charts, lots of ways to set up a whole kind of space sector and to start designing worlds and designing factions for those worlds. And it was this really great sort of crunchy is not the right word, but kind of gritty, sort of dice rolly, tactile way to sort of make to do GM prep, right? And so then we thought that throughout this we might think of how that kind of experience is different than or the same as the kind of GM prep that we'll be doing here, in a sort of making an adventure
and making a place to explore. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have any clever ideas for what we could do there, and the one close contact I would give for that is that we have Jade Colossus, which was written by Bruce Cordell, which has a ruin generating engine, and so it has some of that tactile feel to it, where you roll some dice and you sort of map out the hallways and the physical structures that you move through, but also details of what's in them. And so we might, if we want to come up with a route there, I have said that there's some ruin outside Bodrov, and so maybe we could get some details about that with the ruin generating engine, if that's what we're excited by. So cool. It sounds like some people know what Stars Without Number is, so that's super great. Okay, so let me tell you about Bodrov, and then all of you start thinking of cool Numenera things that you really like that we might want to throw at our players on Tuesday. So Bodrov is a really, really defensible city in Navarine. It's set up on this outrageous prior world plateau that's clearly not just rock or whatever. It's clearly some strange metal. And so I described this a little bit in the first episode. It's got this sort of winding path that leads you up to the city on top of this super wild plateau thing, and the entire city is sort of perched on top of that plateau and then also dug into it. And so there are all these caverns and
sounds networks. Like a dungeon.
It does. I bet we could generate it with this engine, actually. Some other things it mentions is that its population is only about 1,000 people. So when we say city, the Ninth World is a strange place, and cities have sort of a lower barrier than perhaps in the U.S. And so they say the city could easily house 10 times that many. So there are lots of buildings, some ancient, some merely old, that stand empty, left over from the prior epochs of the world, or simply from a time, perhaps hundreds of years ago, when people believed that Bodrov would be a city of great importance. So, let's see. The vacant. Ooh, okay, this is good. I don't know if I read this. The vacant palace is the home away from home of Queen Armalu, although, as the name suggests, she's never been there. So this is the Queen of Navarine, this sort of country that we're in. It was built for her more than 100 years ago by an ignorant but well-intentioned suitor who argued that in times of war or other calamity, the queen should come to Bodrov. Wise of him, yet foolish, for he didn't realize how truly committed she was to never leaving her chambers in Empeternal House. The suitor is now long gone, but his estate still manages the palace for the queen, as per his wishes in his last will and testament. So yeah, Queen Armalu, like hundreds of years old and mysterious and never leaves her Empeternal House chambers. So she's not going to be in Bodrov, but I kind of want to at least have the players pass this cool vacant palace for the empress who's never there.
Pass it, get locked inside of it.
Ooh, cool. So I'm just gonna like kind of jot down some things we've got, so I guess we'll probably, one question I have when I read this is, so they've just walked in the gates, and that's sort of where I cut the first episode. And so there's going to be some stuff up on top of this plateau. And like, what do we think is up there versus what's held below? Is the stuff up above like a big open air market? Is it like defensive? Is like the army here? Is it this like a really militaristic like location before you get underneath? Is this a place where lots of strange Numenera artifacts are really active, or is it more like cleared away and safer? Do you have any thoughts about that? And chat, come at me.
Yeah, I want to know what chat has to say.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious, like, so this is the second episode?
Yeah.
Okay, or adventure?
Right.
So then a question I would almost ask before that one is like, what tone do you want to hit right now?
That's a great
point. Because that might tell us what the answer to that question is. Is it we want the adventurers haven't just been outcasts? Do we want them to feel happy and excited and like stuff's going on and oh my gosh, there's all this we could do out here in this cool and interesting world? Well, then maybe a market or a festival or a parade or something is going on. On the other hand, do we want them to feel like crushed beneath this like duty that they now have? Do we want them to feel trapped? Do we want them to feel put upon? Then maybe they're just confronted by angry guards, or maybe they enter a part of the city that seems abandoned, and there's just like a lone, old guy sitting there telling them ancient secrets that are lies. Like that might go a long way to answer the question about that.
That's a great point. So in the first episode, it started on a low point where they're like, you've committed a murder. You've been framed for murder. No. Goodbye. And so, but then there's sort of the upswing of along the path of getting to Bodrov. They pass like kind of a cute, a lot of my tones tend to lean toward like the Miyazaki strange and cute. And so they have actually just been to a place that had a cool market and was led by this neat Vargellan like mayor, and there's a cute kid. And so that was sort of whimsical and nice. And then they got caught up in like a little like lightning storm bit of like iron wind stuff. And so they all got some mutations, which is pretty bad. So it's sort of, I guess I don't want an open air market because we kind of just hit that. And yeah, I think maybe starting it a little ominous, maybe, I like the like abandoned feeling of this place, and maybe we want to lean into that even when they first get up there.
Yeah.
So maybe there's like a little bit of like merchants will presumably be coming in this way. And so there's a little bit of like general city logistics that happens up here, but maybe you see the sort of remains of what used to be a big, well lived in place that's sort of fallen.
You know what I'm imagining now is like pictures of abandoned theme parks.
Oh,
like maybe it's not just like a door to come into the city, but it's like an elaborate system of pathways and places where you're supposed to stand and places where you're supposed to go and like different windows, but they're all boarded up and abandoned except for one like, ticket taker.
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
And so they're confronted with like, this was supposed to be this like giant, very populated thing, but it's not. And why? And that's weird,
Cool. Sort of put them on edge. And then a cool idea from Spanglemaker is perhaps it's the Queen's birthday or a festival, such as Rose Moon Day. I really like that. And I think that could be a fun transition, right? So if up top it's kind of spooky and confusing and abandoned, and there's no one here. And as soon as you go down, like maybe there's these like brightly lit bioluminescent fungi that are sort of lighting this cavern that you sort of first enter in, and it's bustling, full of like elaborately dressed people and sort of a festival going on. Could be a really nice transition. And it gives people, I know some of these players at least are really, sort of like the social element. At least I really like sort of social play. Yeah. And so it gives them a whole bevy of people to interact with, where if we dropped them in an abandoned part of the city, they sort of have to, they are either limited in their NPC choices, or they have to just go kind of explore and interact with the environment. Awesome.
So I'm seeing in chat people are giving lots of ideas for cool festivals.
Ooh, yes.
An East festival where strange eggs are exchanged. Topical, timely.
Very topical.
I like the idea of the storm having hit,
Oh, brilliant.
And maybe that, like when you're somewhere and a storm has just hit and everybody's run inside.
Yeah.
Maybe the way to have, if you want to start with empty but then have it get lively, maybe it's like, well, everybody just has to like open the blinds again. It's not really abandoned. It just seemed that way for a minute. And now like, oh, the storm's gone. We can all...
I'm getting very like Wizard of Oz, people peeking out of these little strange houses. Cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. So it seems super abandoned and empty. And I think they should, I would really like them to pass a part of the city that has gotten super changed by the Iron Wind. So if anyone has any ideas for like what it could look like, or what kind of building or structure or people or animals might have gotten turned by the Iron Wind, that could be kind of a cool visual to sort of start us with. But then, the rest of the people sort of start to go about their business again. Let's see. I actually just started watching Chrono Trigger. I watched a Let's Play of some Esperanto speakers playing Chrono Trigger. Yeah, so there's festivals, games, and distractions that can build upon your greater theme. I really like that. Don't tell my players this, but I don't fully have a greater theme for the campaign yet. That's kind of just my GM style, right? Yeah. And I've never GM'd for these people before, and so I'm still sort of figuring out what they really like bite and what they don't. I know that like, and so a lot of it's going to involve like, there are certain things about my jamming style that when I'm running Numenera, I just can't probably take out, which is like squicky creatures. There should probably be a Philethus, because Philethus are great.
The best.
And they're mysterious, and they just like amp up the tension and weirdness. So I'm really interested in those kinds of things. But yeah, I don't have greater themes for the campaign yet. Do you tend to start campaigns where you start with, tone? I usually do pick ahead of time, right? And so I knew I wanted a little bit of darkness, a little bit of whimsy. I knew I wanted kind of both of those, because I think if it can be hard to change the tone midway through if you meant for it to be a very, very serious, dark adventure, and you kind of got real whimsical in the beginning. It's like hard to drag your characters elsewhere.
Yeah, and I would say that my style is similar to yours, and that I would pick a tone first, and I would go into, going to the players to be like, I want to play a pretty serious, not really jokey,
right,
drama of a sci-fi game, as opposed to a sort of kooky, whimsical Firefly of a space game, right? Because that all gets us all on the same page. But then I think that themes would come out for me in a sort of session zero context to see what the players are interested, right? Because if you want to play a redemption story and they don't care, like, that's not fun.
Right. Right.
But let's see, if we're thinking about themes, what have we already got? I sort of just now said redemption more or less off the top of my head, but that kind of fits what you're doing, right? They need to prove to themselves.
Yeah.
And if they're being framed, is it a mystery? So you've already got some sort of nebulous themes there.
That's true. Another thing that I had kind of set in the background, and I've mentioned a little bit in the first episode, and I don't know how far I want to lean into, I'm going to kind of see if this is what the players care about or not, is one thing I have always wanted to explore and never, I did it a little bit in our campaign, but it's this, you've got the Steadfast, right, of which Navarine is sort of at the high northern point of, And then above that, you have these cloud crystal sky fields. And then above that, you have this mysterious land of the Gaians, who are, to the extent that the Order of Truth is a religion, they are of a different religion. They're very animist. They believe that, everything has spirits, and it's very like colorful and crystal themed and very cool. And it's elaborated a little bit in the Ninth World Guidebook. And so there's this political tension set up in the core book about the Aeon priests are sort of keeping the steadfast from internal fighting, and they're sort of using the other enemy of the Gaians as this sort of like holy war to like make sure everybody plays along, because we need to work together to fight these guys at the north. And whether that like the details of that are kind of always been of interest to me. And so like, and whether or not the Aeon priests are people, like whether the things that the Aeon priesthood are doing is morally right or not is kind of a question I like to put to people, because they're clearly in power and they know a lot about Numenera, but they're sort of machinations, right? And so they've already kind of screwed over the players, and so that sort of adds a question. So that's something I could see us exploring or not. Like they might be really pissed off at the Aeon priests. They might come to realize that like the miracles of Calaval that they find are so cool or so important that they like get behind that that effort. I don't know.
Hey, it kind of occurs to me that another sort of meta question sort of lurking above this question is are you setting out to have a kind of defined story with a kind of beginning and a middle and an end, or are you playing in a more kind of sandbox setting where you're going to let them sort of make the story that they want, and that affects your sort of, do we have themes, or are we waiting for the themes to sort of bubble up? I'm thinking about, like we mentioned a second ago, Stars Without Number is explicitly written as a system for running sandbox campaigns. And they say, in the GM advice section, they're like, both of these types of, GMing and game styles are perfectly good, but we're writing this system, Stars Without Number, to be for bubbling up stories that come out of sort of what your players decide to be interested in and what they pursue.
Yeah.
So be ready for that. And that can affect your tone, because if they're like, we want to go to the pleasure planet, that can be a very different tone than we want to go to the penal colony to save my father, or whatever.
I knew I wanted to force players to travel to different places and to have like interstitial adventure, right? That was one thing that I felt like was kind of a cool Numenera experience that I hadn't run before, because when we ran it, we did a big University of Doors campaign, which was super fun, but it meant you were at the University of Doors and you would walk through a new door today and have a weird new key, and you would be somewhere else. It's very planescapey. Yeah. It's very mission based. It's very episodic and pretty self-contained. And we had an overarching story and everything, but it was like, blam, here's where you are now. And so I wanted it to be, we are walking, we are building vehicles, we are like having, if not like just random encounters, but like I wanted that interesting things you pass and what you decide to do with them experience. And so what I did to do that, and I don't know if this is right, was because I haven't run that many of those kinds of campaigns, like I like ratcheted up I was like, force them out of the tavern. And so I was like, boom, you're framed for murder. You have to leave, go. And so I think in that way, I've taken away some of the sandboxy, because they're like, unless they get those bracelets off, they like kind of have to go do some things.
Sure.
And so I've taken away a little bit of the sandbox. And so I'm curious whether I or they will be able to like inject some of that back in. I think one cool way to do that would be, I wanted to have more of a session 0 than I had time for. And so what I might do is like talk to people about having some character secrets, or maybe have some like one-on-one and like what's a, almost like Invisible Sun, right? Which really solves this problem by saying you have defined character arcs that you pick. And so you are mechanically motivated to have not just going along with the party goals, but to have other goals. Yeah. And I think maybe if they pick other goals, it will help that story emerge and help the sandbox feel.
Indeed, as opposed to just, we're kind of on the run and let's see what we find.
Yeah.
Maybe on the run's the wrong word, but...
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, like aim towards the Aeon priests and see what happens.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Okay, we have a bunch of cool chat stuff, so let's go look at it. Ooh, a meeting of ancient linguists who speak a sacred language such as Esperanto. The temptation to speak in Esperanto in this campaign is already so great. Let's see. The festival could be inhabited by individuals who are now the attractions. Oh, gross. Dash of Daka. A living Ferris wheel or a merry-go-round could be very macabre, but a master of ceremonies literally glued to the spot and shouting into the city for people to join the fun. I like that. I think I'm going to steal that wholesale if you're cool with it. I wonder if this is like a festival thing that's like happening sort of temporally. Like when they go down, I wonder if he only emerges out of the ground on every, April 3rd or whatever.
Like sort of
like
animatronics at Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah,
that,
but
like,
he's a real person.
On a motion sensor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, someone's finally here.
Oh, I like
and
that.
And that even like emphasizes the nobody's around.
Oh, I like that.
Like the city comes alive because you tripped the tripwire that says, oh, act like someone's here.
Oh, gross. I love that. That's very good. Lucid Macabre, I think, says, I like to use competing factions and groups of NPCs who want to use the PCs. Drop them in the middle and see what happens. That's really smart. Like having interesting groups of NPCs to push up against can really make them sort of, it can make the setting feel alive. Yeah, so I would love to hear some other like faction ideas. So who we've put there currently are like, I guess, strange circus people who are kind of part of the city physically now, which is very fascinating. We've got the, I gave them a name and I've forgotten it, which is why I love having recorded sessions, let me tell you. Pretty great. It's from the Nanocartographers Society. It might have a better name than that. So Tybolt is going to be one of the people, their contacts that they kind of know is there. So there's that group, which is sort of not Aeon priests, but very like educated nanite kind of Numenera people. So who else?
Well, there's the I love the idea of this abandoned, never used castle for the queen. I like if I was doing this, I would be like, you walk up to this place, but don't forget about the castle on the hill.
Ooh,
that's like lightning strike. And I think that you mentioned that people are like keeping it up, so there's like servants or some sort of staff there who are, I'm kind of jiving on this, everybody in this town is animatronic at this point, but whether you like that idea as much as I do or not, but people who are there. And what if there's a conflict between like the kind of hoi polloi in the town who are like struggling to get together, but then there's this like platter of a palace full of beautiful, luxurious, expensive things that they can't get to. And they want to get to to help them, but there's, security drone slug
that kind of can't be reasoned with, maybe.
Things. Yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Laser ferrets.
I'm kind of tempted by this. Everyone's secretly animatronic. I wonder if that storm they went through, right? Because that they just got sort of the little overflow from, and they got modified. What if the city wasn't animatronic, but as of yesterday, like that horrible iron wind storm came through and made everybody. And I haven't said it was like the official iron wind. It was something very iron windy. So what if the effect is everyone who was in that city is suddenly turned into this like, is suddenly made part of the city. Right? I'm kind of intrigued by that. Let me know what you think, folks. Some more people have joined. Thank you. Let's see. Hi, May. It sounds like you guys are kind of as like on my level about the iron wind is pretty great. So the iron wind changed what was once a water reservoir into a pool of what appears to be a liquid mirror, but is solid when walked on. Oh, it's a very good visual. There's a small island in the middle with a hut that was rumored to be used by Calaval. The hut is still oddly intact despite the iron wind. Cool. Yes, that's really smart. We need to, like, as we're building this, the whole run away, you have a quest to do
don't forget about that.
We need to like build Calaval's touch into this place. I wonder if if this hut, so the water reservoir, maybe it was like something that would like heal people, and so maybe this is a tool they could use to like, I don't know, do I even want to give the PCs the option of like undoing the work that the Iron... If the Iron Wind, like, messed up a whole city worth of people, I wonder if it's a little above their abilities. I don't know that I want to bake in a easy solution right away.
Right.
Unless it's in the palace,
well,
because that's, like, big, scary, intense, maybe it's, like, timey-wimey stuff, right?
Yeah. And you do have a small army of nanos here, who are interested in this sort of stuff. So maybe
even if they can't do it themselves because they're tied to the spot.
Yeah, but maybe they could convince this group of cartographers. Maybe you could stick around here and try and figure this out for a while. And it's less that we, the PCs, will solve the problem, and more we'll convince the people who could do it.
Oh, interesting.
But on the other hand, one of the things I like about the whole concept of the Iron Wind is that it's so inscrutable.
Yeah.
It's like so unbeatable. It's the thing, everything in this world is about like, we can figure it out, we can cobble it together, we can eventually figure out how to understand it. But then the Iron Wind shows up and throws all of that out the window. Right? So maybe it's just a choice to make. Is the Iron Wind a solvable problem?
Yeah. I almost wonder, I know that, the art of the Iron Wind in the books and sort of how it's depicted is that it should be many different kinds of effects. I am cheating and saying it's not exactly Iron Wind. And so I don't know. Is it too samey to have a city full of people who have had the same effect of the Iron Wind cast on them? Is that too samey?
I think that's up to you.
Oh no, you have to actually make choices when you're a DM. This is what I had this event for, so I wouldn't have to make choices.
Do I think it's too samey? In one small town, no.
Okay.
Especially if they encountered the same thing and experienced other effects.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And maybe it's just not everybody in the town. Maybe just a portion of the town or something.
Cool. Yeah. I don't think I want to make it super easy to undo that effect unless the players get really excited by it. And then I say, okay, it'll be hard, but let's come up with some ways, as you research or as you look around, there will be clues for something probably. Cool. So they may be excited by that. They may not. I really like this water reservoir, the hut. Should this be, where would we want to put that? Should that be something that's like a major set piece when you go down to that first level or whatever? Is it like, presumably if it's an artifact of Kalaval, they've built sort of reverence stuff around it. So maybe there's the sort of palace up on this underground hill situation, and then is it on the palace grounds? Do they build the palace near this hut of Kalaval? Is that why the players have to go by the palace?
So just so I'm clear, the idea is that this whole city is kind of in an underground cave.
Yeah.
Like there's this sort of pre Ninth World bunker thing.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is inside of it.
And so what I'm kind of imagining is that there's sort of a big space that just makes it easy for me to say, look at all those places you can go. So that's why I'm doing that. And then I'm thinking a lot of the houses and stuff are like built into the walls, built, into there are like caverns, little like corridors coming off all directions. And so there's different sectors of the city that sort of sprawl out in this more meandering snake-like series of hallways and rooms and stuff.
Well, this might be a question that's answered by how long do you want them to spend searching for it?
Yeah.
And how long in this session do you want them to be exploring, if at all, the weird animatronic circus, the queen's abode, anything else, and how much do you want it to be about either here's the giant neon sign pointing at the Kalaval house and go check it out at your leisure, or do you want it to be a kind of mystery? Like I'm thinking of the Prophet Muhammad in Islam had a house that was sort of the first mosque. This is the story, but that house long ago stopped existing. And so I don't bring that up only because what it's making me think of is like, what if there are several buildings in this town that different people say is Kalaval's hut, right? And they might have to go around
I like that.
exploring the different places to figure out which they think is the right place.
Cool.
That's just an idea.
Yeah, I like that because I otherwise the players currently have no excuse to really go explore some of these little side caverns, and that's part of the fun. Cool.
And it might be as much as like here, kind of a like Indiana Jones when he's picking out the goblet, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have the like very fancy cathedral looking one, right? That's like, oh yeah, Colleyval definitely lived here. He was always holy. He always knew what was going on. He definitely lived here. Then have the like parking lot where like nothing is there, and they're like, but it was out there. I'm telling you, it was right there. And then some other option, some medium scale option.
Awesome.
I'm just thinking out loud, but
I like that.
And then they can go around, and maybe they choose right, maybe they choose wrong,
And then if I do decide to have the sort of how much of the city has been animatronic-ized, I could have it that them going into different sectors of the city would let them sort of discover, a portion that is animatronicized, or the only people who weren't animatronicized who are like,
hanging out on the parking lot or whatever.
Yeah, we can't get out because the animatronic people are trying to keep us here or whatever. So there's lots to play with there.
And like I said, I just would think through, do you want to play a session of going to various sites and it being a kind of mystery or not? And just decide, do I want to spend one session here in Bodrov? Do I want to spend 3 sessions here in Bodrov? Because that baking in a mystery like that can really like accordion out your play time.
Yeah. I'm thinking like 1 or 2 sessions is my goal, although they may want to come back or something. So yeah, I probably shouldn't build too much in. Let me look at some other cool ideas you guys had here. Sorry. Let's see. Okay, so there can be, development mode scenes. Oh, somebody blooms. I love that.
What does that mean?
I wonder if that's about the like the guy who's like stuck in the ground who sort of emerges if he like blooms open. I really like that. One thing I do really want to do is because there's kind of a cool backstory about like how these characters knew each other and like the night of the murder, right?
Yeah.
And so I do want to eventually do a flashback, like either episode or scene, or maybe the best way to do it is to have some Numenera artifact be like put in front of them where it's like they can redeem themselves by showing what happened in the past or something, and then we can play it out, which would be cool. So I don't know if I want to do it yet, though. I want to give it a few more episodes. But maybe the cartographers know about such a thing. And so we'd be putting in front of them Colleyval-related things that they can hear about. But also, you want to redeem yourself and say, actually, we never killed anybody, man. Let us back in the city and go about our lives. Having both of those would be great. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Ooh, placing fragments of psyches implanted in the framework. Interesting. If the animatronics aren't the people who were there, but were brought to life because of this weird storm.
Love it.
Ooh,
Absolutely,
and then they don't have to be like humans necessarily. I just watched a Star Trek episode from original Star Trek about the androids planet. It's called I Mud.
Oh, very right.
And so it's I can really channel that. That's super great.
And that goes back to emphasizing this was going to be a great city, but now it's not. It reminds me of like I'm going to forget the name, but when you build a city to pretend that there's a big vibrant city there, but it's not. The name for it that I'm forgetting comes from a historical example where some queen or dignitary was going to come by a place on a boat, so they built a
facade.
They built the facade of a thriving huge city, so that she would be like, "Oh, look at that beautiful city you've got! Whoa!" When it's actually not real.
Yeah,
that's what this whole sort of abandoned theme park city kind of reminds me of.
Yeah. Ooh, that's really cool. Place the hut in that weird water walk. That would be neat. So they had passed. Like, they basically on the way to Bodrov, they were on this like narrow cliff path, and they had looked down, and there was sort of a valley with like a river in it and everything. And that's where like the epicenter of the storm was. So I wonder if having that tied to that the place where that was hitting was definitely something associated with Kalaval. Maybe that is where the hut is. That's not a bad idea. I'll have to think about that.
Wait,
so many
none of these options are surely the House of Kalival. We must have missed it. Time to go back. Something.
Yeah. And like, you know, maybe I just say that like you hear rumors of these 5 like places that Kalaval was said to have inhabited or miracles of Kalaval, and so just let the players sort of like choose what seems most interesting to them. Could be a way.
And even going back to the lazy GM, being like, you hear a rumor about a place, Shanna.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yes.
You know?
Oh, yes, I love that trick. The laziest GMing tricks brought to you by John and Darcy. Cool. Yeah, a control center in a ruin that would be unearthed by the Iron Wind. That would be really cool. Yay. Davidson 925, you always have lots of great things to add, so you guys are great. And thank you just for being here with us. It's fun to have an excuse to bounce ideas back and forth. Spanglemaker 371 has an idea that the animatronic folks have a change during the day and night cycle. That could be really ominous.
Like they go evil?
Yeah. Or dark or something. Or maybe they just all stop working and then it becomes this abandoned place again.
Yeah, that's
so
much
during
creepier.
the day they're
like,
hey, everything's fine. Yep, and then that would be really alarming.
Especially if it happened like mid-conversation with an NPC.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if that NPC is about to give them very important information. You know?
Yes. But presumably that would leave the palace unguarded if that was something they cared about.
Presumably. Hey-o. Or, counter-proposal, nope. But they don't know that.
They don't know that. They could surmise that
these laser ferrets did not get animatronic-sized, obviously.
Obviously. That's awesome. Spanglemaker 371. The murders for which the PCs were blamed, which they, some kind of frame happened. We could have other threads of that conspiracy against them possibly dangled here or something. There's a rival theater here to Shallamas, and of course Shallamas is of course better, but
in Bodrov, you mean?
In Bodrov, so that
an animatronic theater company. Love.
Oh no!
Love it.
What have I done? Ooh, interesting. The Dashdaka is saying the festival day, if we wanted to have that animatronic personality change, it could be like during the time of the festival, like that's what, instead of a night day cycle, it's the holy day, everybody's nice, or everybody's evil, and then that changes. But yeah, I think whatever we tie it to, it won't be clear to the players unless it happens right then, right? So I think it should happen kind of mid conversation. That's a really good idea. Oh, hi, May. The people built the town to appear to still be inhabited so the queen wouldn't notice as they all left.
That's the saddest story ever told.
Jeez. That is really sad.
I don't know.
Oh, man. I kind of like that.
And then maybe that means that there would be different levels of skill put into the animatronics. Like some of them are very fancy and some of them are just sort of like scarecrows.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was by the suitor of Armalu, right? Who was like,
no, you can't leave. The queen's going to come back. Oh, well, I'll make an exact copy of you out of robot.
Yeah. And so he's been dead for some years now, but all of his creations are still there.
Dead.
Oh, boy. Oh, the suitor's still alive. Definitely.
Alive.
Cool. And so, like, I guess the question would be, why doesn't Shallamas know about it, right? Because I've already established that they have like a rival theater company, that Shanna had been there. So
right. So
I think everyone who works at the palace should not be human. I think they should either be constructs, they should be holograms, they should be little bundles of nanites under a little flesh suit.
Yep.
I think that could work. And no one would know the better because, plebes aren't allowed
Uh-huh.
in or whatever. Palace has automatic defenses, laser cats. With animatronics, I like the idea of a jack-in-the-box guy with an important tip, but they have to pull the crank and build the tension as they do. That's really funny. Drop a book on the ground or something for shock value. Oh, man. Okay, I feel like I have a lot of ideas about the city, and now I need to, like, narrow down and know what I'm putting in front of them. So, a lot of great ideas. Okay, so I think what they should know is that there are, like, this is a big place that Kalaval, like, went through back in the day, and so there is, like, I'm going to give them some options. So there's going to be a floating something or other, and I think on Twitter I had asked for some suggestions when I was going to run this, and I think there's some good ones, so I might just take one of those to steal. So floating something or other outside the city. There's going to be the like, liquid solid mirror pool hut.
Love it.
I think something should be inside the palace. Something, or maybe like hints that lots of things are in the palace and really tempt the players to like want to go up against the defenses, because maybe they can find a whole bunch of Kalaval ephemera and take it back and be done.
And that would be a great place to be like, you could do this, but it will be very dangerous.
Yeah.
And you adventurers have to make a choice.
Yeah, high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
And then so I think like I like the hut and the pool being sort of, again, outside of the city a little bit, as this place they can visit. And maybe I won't put it where they passed it last time, but a little bit ahead toward like the Amber Monolith, so that even if they do some stuff in the city, they might want to hit it along the way. I still want to kind of put it, I don't want to make them choose against it just because it's backtracky.
Yeah.
And so the fourth thing, would be like, there are 3 different locations that were supposed to be the house he grew up in or something. So lots of options, but they won't choose all these. I don't need to fully flesh out all these.
Right. It can be Schrodinger's miracle site.
Yeah, exactly. And so much of this stuff, I use the like weird deck a lot, and I usually have a lot of tools around that I can just, if I'm stuck for an idea, I find I just need something to riff off in the moment, and then I'll be able to figure something out. So I guess as this is sort of Schrodinger's, these are cool places they could go visit to find something related to Kalaval. And so it could be a thing, it could be a piece of knowledge, it could be, that's what the Anne priests are really interested in. So what are some things they could find in this place? So like, what are, what could their reward for discovering this thing about Kalaval be? And so, yeah, do you have any ideas?
What do you mean?
So
you mean
finding,
what could the thing be? Not what could the reward for the thing be?
Right. Okay. What could the artifact or piece of knowledge about Kalaval be to bring back to those Anne priests to redeem themselves, right?
Nose hair. Footprints.
Ooh. I think I had specifically said something about like, it needs to be like a secret of the Numenera. It needs to be something like really, it's kind of about him, but it's more about the things he was discovering. And I would love to hear from you guys, chat, if you have any cool ideas.
The Iron Man was an inside job.
God. I do like old cities and new cities, and the old city like deeper underground or something. That's a good idea, Jaime. We could put these 3 locations. The reason people don't have a lot of information to give you, as opposed to it's on Baker Street, is because it's in the old city.
Because it's long abandoned and hidden underground. Right?
Yeah. Dash of Daka says something tied to the purpose of the Amber Monolith, or some kind of hidden secret. So I kind of like the idea. So as my general idea for the arc of this adventure, of this campaign, which I am fully ready to slip through my fingers at any moment, and have said as much to the players. I was like, hey, if you hate this whole setup of the wrist thing, like, if you try really hard to get rid of it, it is possible. It's Ninth World. And they're like, we don't really hate it. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're kind of into it. And they're like, we more care about the sort of murder mystery bit. And so they're willing to like go out and adventure as they sort of start to uncover that too.
I just parenthetically really like the idea of you just having a map and being like, you're getting far enough away, and then the wristbands start like beeping and nothing happens for a while. It just like, as they get farther away, doing something perfectly reasonable, but they just start beeping more and more and more. And like, you know, that's, I know that you don't roll in Numenera as a GM, but like do something that's like,
and I would put that as a GM intrusion, but have it had no deleterious effect right away. I think that's super smart. I kind of like this idea of, because I have this, they go out and they go to a couple different places, sort of vague plan for the campaign. I almost want to have them discover something, but it won't make sense until they get more, right? And so, or like, you know, like Dasha Daka said, it's something that seems clearly related to the Amber Monolith, or the Aeon Priest there can say, wow, that looks something that has like these patterns that we've seen on the Amber Monolith. I can't figure out anything about it right now, but if you brought it there, then you would maybe get some answers. And so it gives them the satisfaction of, I found a thing, without being like, I found a thing. Do I go back to the Aeon Priest? Do I go back to Shallamas now?
Maybe we could come up with a more Numenera-y sort of flavored thing for it to be, but it would have the function of like part of a map.
Yes,
or
exactly.
like a page from a journal. You know, something that there's like,
I do love maps.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. So like, and maybe to Numenerify, it's like somebody's eyeball that when you put it into your eye socket, it lets you see the map or something. I don't know. But something where they can decide, is this enough? Because literally there are theoretically 4 or 5 more parts of it.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
And that could even give them opportunity to be like, haha, we found something, go back. This is not good enough.
Yeah.
Go back out into the world. Or whatever.
Yeah. I really like the eyeball thing, and like working with vision, either vision of the past, or whether the eyeball is letting you decipher certain things. And so like maybe they find Kalaval's weird house, or something where Kalaval was said to live, and there's this text that no one's ever been able to these patterns on the wall that no one could ever see, and if you have the eyeball up, you can like understand something about its function.
Hey, you remember? Did you ever play Papers, Please, the video game?
No.
So okay, so then that exact example won't be very useful. But like in Papers, Please, there are certain things where you get like a decoder.
Ooh,
where there's like a set of letters, and you get passed by like a spy, like a piece of plastic or something with holes cut out of it, that when you put it on top of the numbers, it shows you which are the important symbols. It's just like a decoder ring of some sort, right? So what if it's something like that? And maybe you need more of them because like one of them isn't the whole code.
Yeah.
You know, so you would stack them on top of each other and you would read through it or something like that.
Or
like they could, but this is Numenera, so it could be like 3 different light projector things that project images onto it, and only when all 3 of them are projected does it fulfill the something.
Ooh, I like that a lot. I'm just gonna read some more super cool, long abandoned and run over by snails. How dead is Kalaval is a really interesting question. I wonder if that could be a fun thing at the end. But yeah, I mean, finding an eye that's associated with Kalaval would be kind of cool. Like, I like this idea of something like corporeal of Kalaval, or something he like used as an eyeball socket.
And then you're into like religious icon territory.
Yeah.
You know?
Or it also gets into like eye and hand of Vecna territory. But
it's a good territory.
I don't mind. Dash of Daka has the idea that it could be locations of another Amber Monolith. That would be really cool. I wonder if that's what they find at the end of this. If they...
At the end of the campaign?
At the end of the campaign is like...
Another Amber Monolith?
There's a setup for like a season 2 if they care to. I don't know.
the topaz monolith. There are other monoliths, right?
Or
that's like a lore thing.
Yes, there are. Maybe it does reveal the locations of the other eyes or the other decoder rings, right? So this one like reveals its partners to you, and so they have pretty distinct places that they feel confident they can go explore if they care to.
If we want to do this, we just go do that. Yeah.
Right. Ooh, yeah. Map to another world. I do like that. Cool. Yeah. So we're already at like the end of the hour, which I cannot in any of my heart believe. So this was a lot of good stuff.
Hell, I think yeah.
I guess the one thing I want to like settle on is like, what's the situation with the animatronics? Who is animatronized? Because I'll have to present that sort of solidly so that they're not confused. I like the idea that something weird happened with the storm. So something storm triggered, which is why they wouldn't have heard about it recently. And it sort of reminds them that they are sort of mutated by the storm, and that's alarming. Mm-hmm. So storm triggered, but is it... Yeah, what's happened? Is it that everyone had left before the storm, and so the people who are here are like... It's just the survivors of the storms? I don't know. This is my hardest part of GMing, is like you have to come... You can't be wishy-washy about certain things.
About certain
right?
things, yeah.
If you want there to be a mystery, you can't be wishy-washy.
Right. Especially if you're throwing them into a potentially hard to understand environment, because then you just get confused, and confused is like absolutely not an optimal play state.
Yeah.
Right? It is the worst play
Intrigued,
state.
yes. Confused, no.
Exactly. What do you think, chat?
Yeah, what do you think? I think there's a way to do polls, but I don't feel super confident how to do it.
Oh, push that button. Is that one?
Oh gosh, no, that's
filter. Nope, broke the whole
mistakes
thing.
were made.
Whoop.
Oh gosh, yeah, this is us. Now we get to watch us messing that up again. Okay, I think let's make some decisions.
I guess
I'm kind of most excited by everyone has become a part of the city now.
Hell yeah, then do it.
Except maybe the palace, and maybe they sink back into the ground, into like the structure at night or something, right? But they act totally normal otherwise.
Will the players be able to tell that they're like changed immediately? Like, because if the answer is yes, then it can be like there's like the circus ringleader guy on an obviously metal armature acting like a robot. Or is it like they've entered Westworld and you can't tell who's a robot at first, and then they sort of start putting it together? Like,
I think that
when everybody deactivates.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining. It's like because there's a deactivation state.
Because then if either you get to have the cool scene of suddenly everybody stops moving. Like, can you imagine the GM moment of everyone stopped moving and people like holes open in the ground and everyone you've just been interacting with goes into it? Or the equally, or maybe to me more horrifying idea of just everyone stops and is frozen and doesn't move, right? Or something like that.
Yeah,
to be like frozen. And like do that right when something's going good and giddy and they're having fun at this festival, and then just be like, but stab, twist.
Yes.
Everything's really weird.
I love it. Cool. And like that will happen. That is a GM intrusion that's in my hands to
hell yeah to just
make happen whenever.
Right.
So yeah, there's going to be, but I'm imagining like, there's still this cartographers group. Everybody's still there. They've just been turned a bit.
The cartographers are on.
And maybe that's a defense of the city. Maybe the storm activated the defense of the city, and that's what it did. So that, as opposed to the Iron Wind, for some reason affected everybody in the same way. The Iron Wind, like the storm messed up we've already sort of built up that Bodrov is the best defended little city ever. Cool. I feel like that's a good start. I feel like that's solid enough that I can stand on it and riff.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if I had more time, because apparently I am rambly today, I would have loved to come up with some more NPCs, but John actually has a cool way for building NPCs on the fly.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the NPC deck, which I have already used a whole bunch in this campaign. Like every time I need a name or a person, I grab a card. So I really dig that. But you also have...
Yes, so when we were talking about this before we got on air, Darcy and I were talking about just like how to do GM things on the fly and how to, one problem I find is that if you GM enough, you find that you kind of have certain tropes that you like, or certain kinds of NPCs that you can kind of get into a rut, right? And how do you sort of bust out of that in the moment, especially if you're making up new NPCs on the spot or something? So that I have two non-Monte Games related products that I just wanted to share with you that I use a lot, all the time. The first one is, you may have heard of, it's called Rory's Story Cubes. And what it is, it's like a set of dice, but instead of there being numbers, it's all just images. Let me see if I can show you on the camera. So they have just pictures of various things. And the physical dice come with instructions about several kind of small storytelling games you might play with these dice, but I find them really useful for putting in like a bowl or a Tupperware or something. And when you do that thing where you turn to the players and you're like, come up with a thing on the fly, sometimes that can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
Or when you're like, I need to come up with a thing on the fly, and I've been running this game for 3 hours, and I had a whiskey and Coke just now, and like, I really am not landing on solid ground.
Yeah.
You just shake all these up, you look at it, you pick one of the symbols you see, and you think, okay, that's what I'm going to put my foot on. And I find that helps me really then move on with doing things. There's another set of these that are for... There's several expansions, and the other big main expansion is actions, and it has like kick, run, jump, rush, and I find those really helpful during like combats.
Oh yeah,
to instead of just being like, I shoot you, you shoot me back, I shoot you back, but to be like, oh, I jump up on this thing, right?
Yeah.
The other product is another short little game called Short Order Heroes. Ta-da! And this is great for NPC building, both as a GM before your players are at the table and while they're at the table. And what it is just a deck of cards, and each card has a picture, a word, and a number on it. And it comes with a way that you can use the numbers for a very simple kind of randomization way so that you can play a fully fledged game just with the cards, which I did a few days ago, and it was great fun. But also I find these really great for when... Again, you've been playing for 3 hours, you're running out of steam, and they have gone somewhere you did not expect, and you just don't want it to be another boring shopkeeper. So you're like, oh, he's a dwarf, and he's there. Oh, I don't know. So you can just like quickly like wham, bam, bam, put down 3 of these cards, and you either look at the pictures or you see the words. I just pulled 3: stoic, cowardly, and gullible. Like... That's an NPC I want to hit. That's a shopkeeper, right? It's not just, he's a guy and he's got wares to sell.
Khajiit has wares.
But like an old retired general who doesn't want to get involved in the new conflict because he thinks it's going to go bad. Ooh. But, maybe you can convince him otherwise. Like, that's already a more interesting NPC. So anyway.
And then I would pair that, or, I supplement that with, like, Numenera, you want a sense of weird a lot of times. And so there's the Injecting the Weird PDF Glimmer supplement that I use a lot. And so they've got a table that's, like, a weird thing about that person. And so, and there's also a weird deck that also has, like, weird characteristics you can add to people, places, or things. And so when I'm like, man, I just made a cool Earth NPC and I'm feeling the need to weird it up a little, I tend to go to those. And what I used to do when I was jamming my campaign too is I would before either of those like products really existed, I would make myself tiny little lists of when I was in like a lecture that I was losing my mind out of, I was like, I'm gonna make a list of weird things. It was like
does not have a neck, their head floats above their shoulders.
Smells faintly of like lilacs, but only during the day.
Always accompanied by the sound of a dishwasher.
Etc. Fill in the blanks. So thank you so much. We should probably end here. But if you want to tune in and see how the players interact or don't, maybe they just leave Bodrov. Who knows? Who could ever say? Come watch at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday.
Woo!
Yay! And thank you so much for all your help. This was really, really lovely.
Oh, can I do one more plug?
Yeah.
So I wore my Contessa t-shirt today.
Nice.
Ta-da! Contessa is a organization that runs events and other things, mainly at conventions throughout the country. And they will be at Gen Con coming up. Contessa is an organization that amplifies the voices of marginalized peoples. So what that means is they make leadership opportunities, especially opportunities to run games for women, for people of color, for queer, LGBTQ people, for disabled people, things like that. They are actively right now still looking for volunteers from those communities to run games, run events, run panels at Gen Con. So if you're interested in that, or if you just want to donate or check out some of their cool swag, you can go to contessa.rocks, contessa.rocks.
Excellent.
There's all the info.
Yeah, and I would say if you haven't GM'd before, if you know someone who, from one of those communities who you think would be a great GM and haven't yet, I've known a lot of people who their first con game, their first thing that they've ever run at a convention or possibly ever run, have done it at Contessa events, and they're really just supportive, great places. So if you know someone on the fence, or if you are, like, that's a great first time to do it. And it sounds like some of you guys have given me some more NPC stuff, so I really appreciate that. Woohoo! Yay! All right, take it easy, everybody, and gosh, may your ciphers never malfunction. All right, bye.